Yep.
Am I good? Do I sound all right? You guys need me to record my end or anything like that?
No, we should be good here, Zach. You hear us fine, so we should be good.
Yep.
We're getting a light. Is there a window open in front of you, or
Do you guys post video of this?
Well, we do a little bit, Zach.
Yeah, we use
You
it.
want me to turn on the
Yeah,
light? There's
if
just
you
a
don't
light
mind.
above
Yeah,
me.
if
I thought you were an angel.
Yeah, it was an angel glow.
we had that angel glow yesterday with Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm an angel.
Am I too dark now?
No,
No,
that's
perfect,
good. That's
perfect.
good.
Okay, stand by.
Much better.
I'm gonna choke on my
Oh,
gummy bear.
hold on, let me,
Just my face does that, huh?
It is now our pleasure to welcome in this week's special guest. You know Zach Lowe. You follow him. He's the host of the Lowe Post podcast. You see him on The Jump with Rachel Nichols and the gang. You see him on ESPN Sports Center. You follow him on ESPN.com. Zach, do you ever have any free time for yourself?
I had enough time to go sledding for a little bit yesterday in the blizzard that we have here, but not as much as I used to have. But that's good. Who wants free time? You know.
How do you know the king? When this friendship started?
Well, I started talking with. I mean, look, I've been a long time fan. I mean, I think I was 11 years old when you guys made the Final Four. 88? Is it the 88 Final
88,
Four?
yep.
I was 11.
Way to make me feel old.
I thought Oklahoma was cool. I thought Oklahoma was cool. And then obviously I was a huge NBA fan. And so Stacey and I started talking more over the summer when there was nothing, or the spring, I guess, when the Last Dance was all there was going on. And I did some stories on some old Bulls stuff, and we got in contact. But I'm a longtime fan. I remember when there used to be a Stacey King soundboard somewhere on the internet where you could hit a bunch of buttons at Sriracha.
Right.
Give me that.
Bobblehead
Give me
too.
that. Yeah. But I think that's gone now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun thing the Bulls had up. The fans get a big kick out of that. So I thought it was cool too.
So
I liked it.
Zach, what do you think about this current Bulls outfit? I know that you devoted a big part of the last Lowe Post podcast with our good buddy Nick Friedel, talking about the Bulls for half the show. And it's kind of an interesting place they're in right now. They've got a new front office, a new head coach, but they've got the same roster. And a lot of the fan base is wondering how many of these guys will still be around when they're still good. When they get to be good. Let's start with Lauri Markkanen, who's going to be a restricted free agent coming up this summer. Do you think Lauri's part of the long-term plan, or is that a still to be determined?
I think the two big tests for the new front office, for the two big questions, are Lauri and Zach. And sort of just so there will be trade demand for Zach. There already is. And they'll have to decide, if he's part of the core and Lauri's free agency coming up. He's had such a weird up and down career. Every time you're ready to sort of step, I was super enthralled with him when he came into the league. I thought this guy has all the makings of a star stretch four, guy who can average 22, 23 a game, be the hub of an offense as a screener. And the injuries and the confidence issues. But then every time you're ready to be like, you know what, maybe he's just like a guy, just like a good player, not someone that I really need to sort of make part of my core. He has these stretches like he's on now where it's like every game, 25, 30, 32. And you're like, what? I can't quit this guy. So he's probably up to like 19 or so a game this year. So that he's making their decision hard, which I wasn't sure was going to happen.
Well, I think one thing, because I'm around them all the time, the one thing that I see with Lauri is about confidence, having someone believe in him. When Fred Hoiberg was here, Fred really believed in him. They kind of tailored their offense around him, and you could see the confidence in the kid. And I was like you. I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be the next Dirk Nowitzki, yada, yada. And then there was a coaching change, and you could tell that he kind of looked like a fish out of water, the last year. Like he didn't know where he belonged. He spent a lot of his time at the three-point line, which for a 7-footer, if you're not making those shots, and he's a pretty decent three-point shooter, but when you're not making those shots, you have to do other things. And I felt like he didn't do that last year. But with Billy Donovan, I've been impressed with the way he has incorporated Lauri to do other things besides just being a three-point shooter or a pick and pop guy. He's getting to the free throw line more this year. He's driving to the basket more. Have you seen those same things too, Zach?
Yeah, and he's always good. You get him the ball on the move, like around the foul line, come off the screen, get him a moving catch. He can get to the line with one dribble. Like he's always, and you talk to him and you talk to people around him, like he wants to feel involved. And that doesn't, yes, he's valuable standing around the 3-point line while Wendell screens and rolls and all that, but he wants to touch the ball. He wants to feel like he's involved. And you're right. He can do stuff like the test for him will be, when they put 5s on him, can he beat those guys off the dribble? When they put 3s and 2s on him on switches, can he do a little damage in the post or just kind of driving through those guys? And that stuff has been hit or miss, but he can be, dynamic is probably too strong a word, but he wants to feel involved. And when he is involved, you can see it brings a little juice to him.
Zach, the word is that they didn't really come close to getting an extension of his rookie deal done. So as I mentioned, he's going to be a restricted free agent next summer. And that's going to be, I think, very difficult to find the right price point for Lowry. He's not a max guy, but in this market with so many of the stars signing extensions early, kind of watering down the 2021 free agent class, he could get an offer sheet from somebody that might make the Bulls a little bit itchy. How do you think that might turn out ultimately?
If he plays like this, he's going to, because like you said, all the guys who didn't sign were by default kind of big winners going into the offseason, because there's just going to be way more cap space than there are sort of star players. So he's not a max player, but I don't think he'll get a max. But you have the young guy max and the veteran max, right? So the young guy max isn't like what we think of as this giant crippling max deal. It's a lot, but it's not that. Who knows? I agree with you. They didn't get close. If he's averaging 20 a game by the end of the year, it's going to be hard to keep him under 20 million, I think.
When you hear, because we hear all these trade rumors, and we hear that, Lonzo Ball's name is coming up now, and possible the Bulls may be looking into that. What's your thought process on that? And do you think that's a good fit for the Bulls, depending on what they have to give up, if they had to give up somebody for him?
Yeah, it would depend a lot on what they would have to give up. Like, I've seen Bulls Twitter kick around the Lonzo for Lowry sort of straight up challenge trade. And I wouldn't do that if I were the Bulls. I get the infatuation with Lonzo. Like, if I were playing pickup, I would love to play with Lonzo. He clearly sees the game at a high level. He reads the game at a high level. And I get why the Bulls, who sort of have been, who's the point guard? Is Kobe a point guard? Not really. Is Zach a point guard? Not really. Then we get Satoransky in here. He's going to be the pass first guy who gets everyone moving. Kind of hasn't worked. Like, I get the idea of Lonzo there. I wouldn't do that. And, you guys watch the league. Like, if you can't shoot, what is Lonzo doing in a slowed down half court offense? What is his role? Like, when you're flying around running fast breaks, it looks awesome. What is he doing in a slow down playoff game when guys are going to duck under every screen by 10 feet and he doesn't have a floater? Like, I can't kind of figure that one out.
Yeah, one of the big conundrums with the Bulls right now is they're not convinced that Kobe White, even though it's only his second year in the NBA, he's 20 years old. I think Billy Donovan and the front office have already kind of concluded this guy is not going to be our point guard of the future. So we're going to have to figure out how we use him, maybe in a 6-man role, or do we move Zach LaVine along and shift Kobe over to the 2? Now, there's already tons of Zach LaVine trade rumors out there. He's got a year plus on his deal coming up, a very value contract. Do you think ultimately the Bulls will invest in Zach LaVine, or do you think they'll choose to move him along and then shift Kobe to the 2 guard?
I don't know, but I have no real hard intel on that. He's a really interesting player. Boy, can that guy score. And if you're just forcing me to make a prediction, I would probably put my money on they trade him eventually. I don't feel good about that, but I feel like I just like if you're forcing me to make a prediction, that's what it would be. I don't feel great about it, but and he could be eligible for an extension in the offseason, and that will be another sort of telling thing. But the rumors aren't going to stop. And that's why the point guard thing is so interesting with them, because it does feel like the Bulls are a really interesting collection of players looking for something to tie them all together. And that's why the point guard is a point of obsession. And I don't think Zach is the piece to tie them all together. I don't think Kobe is either. And I understand why they're kind of, this is what people are thinking about. It makes sense.
When you look at this team, we talked about it last night at the game. They have made leaps and bounds changes offensively. They're one of the better teams offensively. Last year, they were like in the bottom half scoring wise, and they were mid 14, 15 level defensively. The thing that's flipped this year is they're much better offensively, and their defense has dropped down. Where do you see the problem, and how can they fix it and get better, at least to get themselves to the mid-level, that 14, 15 range? Because they're currently, I think, 27th or 28th, and that's way too low for a young athletic team like them.
Well, Young though cuts both ways, right? Young is a lot of mistakes and a lot of learning curve, and with Wendell just constantly in and out of the lineup, I mean, they just can't get any rhythm with him. You know, he was excited about Billy Donovan's new scheme. I'm not going to be trapping 35 feet from the rim. I can be a rim protector, and that didn't quite, like, he was good, but it didn't quite play out. And the perimeter defense just has to be a little better. I haven't looked at the fundamentals to see it lately to see, you know, are they fouling a lot? Are they allowing a lot of rebounds? But they're just sort of, you know, if they're a young team. I don't think, I mean, who's a plus defender in their starting five? I mean, you want to say Pat Williams, he's a rookie. Wendell's injured. Like it's the personnel doesn't scream top 10 defense.
Yeah, they're in a situation right now where they've had a series of top 10 picks. We've seen this in the league in the past, going back to the Clippers days and, you know, Sacramento Kings. You load up on young guys and it never seems to come together. Then you get rid of them and you bring in more young guys. It's a never ending cycle. Are the Bulls in that situation right now? Do they need to go out and get this big name veteran to tie it all together? Or do you see with the new coaching staff and a new front office, there's still hope for this current group?
Well, the danger of going out and getting the big name veteran, if you trade all the young guys to get the big name veteran, it's like, well, who's that guy playing with? You know,
right.
What is that actually accomplishing? Unless you think that guy's going to get another big name veteran somewhere down the line to come in, which is possible. Yeah, I mean, this is why the Jimmy Butler trade is going to be one that we revisit just over and over again, because it was a flashbulb moment for the Bulls. He was 27 or 28 years old, right in his prime. He was someone who, depending on your taste, was like the 10th best player in the league, the 12th best player in the league. Some people might have been a little more optimistic than that. And they just said, you know what? We're shooting for the stars. We're shooting for a championship. We're going to give ourselves a lot of bites at the apple in the draft. And that gives us better championship odds than staying in the course with Jimmy, who, whatever faults you had with him in Chicago and since whatever, he is someone who ties it all together. And they don't have that. And we're still, and you're right. The downside danger of that trade is you just end up picking 7th every year and you spin your wheels for a while and then you're the Kings. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen to them, but that is that trade. And we debate a lot of trades in the NBA. We're still debating the Harden trade every day. I actually don't think there's enough debate about that trade. That was a real fork in the road for the Bulls, and they took one hard turn.
Hey, Zach, I listened to your Lowe Post show with Nick, and I love the rigmarole that you use, the term everything. But I just want to go back because I was Stacey's producer for 8 years, and I was there that night when the coordinated effort by Wade and Jimmy Butler came out. And I don't think Rondo got enough credit because he did show up every night. I used to watch him with Isaiah Cannon going hard every game, hard, making him a better player. And it was uncomfortable before the game. And I'm just going to say, you know, for the record, if Rondo doesn't get hurt against Boston, they win that series. So I just want to make that
maybe Jimmy's
clear.
Still here.
You know, maybe Jimmy's still here, but you go back to that game too. He had 11 points, 9 rebounds, 14 assists, 5 steals. Rondo, I'm a Boston guy. I love Rondo, but I just want to I don't think that point was made enough, is that he called those guys out because, you know, I mean, I love Jimmy Butler and Dwayne Wade. I'm not here to say, but I know Rondo showed up every day. So I just want you to you know, as you file that away. And for my question,
thank you. I was wondering when you get to the question.
Well,
the preamble was great. Well, we got to get to the question.
Well,
the question, man.
Well, my question is,
I fell asleep.
I now direct the Milwaukee Bucks, and so I just want you to kind of give us an idea, since we're in the same division. But what I see is big guys with the wall on Giannis, and that's worked since Toronto. And now you have teams every night running threes, and they just broke a record for the most threes allowed, and they won last night. But, you know, a little concerning, you know, where you see this Bucks team as we head into the.
There's no time limits on podcasts, but you got to get to the question.
Damn.
That's the question.
Zach, there's like 20 questions here.
All right, so the Bucks. The Bucks are first in offense by a mile and 15th in defense. And if you look at their defense, and they were first in defense last year. If you look at their defense this year versus last year, everything is exactly the same, except teams are hitting all their threes. The attempts are the same. Where the attempts are coming from are the same. Like, they actually don't allow a lot of corner threes. They allow a ton of longer threes. They're just going in. And so it just raises the question, are they getting unlucky or are they doing something schematically that's leaving the wrong guys open? And if you watch, so they just had 2 games. You said they won last night. They blitzed the Blazers.
Yeah.
Before that, Charlotte put up 126 on them, and New Orleans put up 131. If you watch, especially the Charlotte game, the Bucks started switching a lot in that game, and switching stuff that, like, you don't think a LaMelo Ball, Cody Zeller pick and roll is like urgent enough to require a switch. And they would switch, and then the Hornets would run something else, and they would try to switch again, but they would screw it up. They'd get confused. And this has been the knock on the Bucks for 2 or 3 years now, is they get to the playoffs, they only know how to play this one style of defense where Brook hangs back 20 at the rim and they concede all these threes. And they run up against teams that can exploit that defense, and they don't switch even when they should switch or when the personnel dictates they should. Well, why don't they practice this stuff in the regular season to get ready for the playoffs? It's clear that from on high somewhere, maybe it's just Bud, they've decided we're gonna do that. We're gonna switch now. We're gonna start working it into our game plan. And there's definitely been some hiccups, but I think it's smart of them to play the long game, because if you get to play the Heat and Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson run a split action on the wing, and you don't switch that, you're just not going to beat the Heat, because they're going to get open threes out that. Those guys are like the same player. You have to be able to switch stuff like that. If you get to, a team, I'm trying to think, if you get to face Kemba Walker in the playoffs, or you get to face, the Nets, you can't just let James Harden and Kevin Durant walk into off the dribble 3-pointers on the pick and roll with Brook Lopez at the basket. Like, you're going to lose. You have to have a little more versatility. So I think they're trying to work on that.
Speaking of the Brooklyn Nets, I love Kyrie Irving. I think he's an explosive talent, but just watching them play when he was out, I thought James Harden and Kevin Durant play really well together, and that they don't have a lot of depth because they made it to the trades and got rid of most of their bench players. What do you think about maybe trading a Kyrie Irving to get other players back to strengthen that? Because Kevin Durant is the one superstar of the 3 that can play with everybody, and he can find a role to fit in and still get his, but doesn't look like he's actually trying to get his. You know what I'm saying? Where the other 2 are ball dominant players, and James Harden has shown you that he can play point guard and distribute the ball. I mean, he's had a bunch of double-digit assists. He's had a few since he's been in Brooklyn. So what do you think about that, Zach?
Totally agree. And look, these are not easy decisions, right? Like, these are the decisions that keep GMs up at night and stress you out. And there's lots of variables that go into them. But if you gave me the choice of like every version of the Nets on a whiteboard, so you have the current version, you have Harden, Durant, no Kyrie, but all my depth. You have Kyrie, Durant, no Harden, but all my depth, blah, blah. I'm taking Durant, Harden, and all my depth.
Yes.
And no Kyrie.
Yes.
That's the version. Now, that doesn't mean this current version can't win the championship, because you know better than I do. You get 3 dudes that good together, you find a rhythm, you can absolutely win the championship. I'm just saying, you've compromised your entire future for 7 years and given up LeVert and Allen, who are good players, and Taurean Prince is a useful role player to build this team. Well, I'd rather have all those guys in Harden and Durant. So I totally agree with you. The problem with trading Kyrie is twofold. Number one, he just took a hiatus and nobody really knows why. And every other team in the league would need sort of some answers to that question. Like, is this guy going to be in if we trade for him? And number two, he and KD came as a package deal. So you have to assume if they ever get there down the line. And I agree with you. That makes theoretical sense, right? Let's replenish our depth by trading our 3rd star for all that depth. But KD is probably going to have to sign off on that, you would imagine, which may or may not happen. But I agree with you. They're all good versions, but that's the version I like the best.
Yeah, ultimately they're going to have to play some defense because they've played next to none since the trade, or really most of the season. The game the other day when they blew the game in the final seconds against Washington, that final score 149-146 in regulation. Now, 2 of the worst defensive teams of all time. But
who has the best defense in the league over the last 10 games?
The Knicks?
Houston.
Okay, yeah, they've been winning too. That's a big reason why. What I was going to get to was NBA Twitter was talking about Bradley Beal's body language early in this game, that he seems checked out. Of course, then he got hot in the 4th quarter and helped them come from behind to win. What's your read on the whole Bradley Beal situation? You think at some point before the deadline, he and his agent are going to try to force a move out of Washington?
Are you telling me the NBA Twitter overreacted to
Yeah,
a very small
just
sample size of information?
Yes.
I don't know what's going to happen with Beal. You know, all I've heard and all the reports today are status quo. Wants to win in Washington. No move has been indicated. No pressure has been put on the Wizards. And I really think he does want to win there. I think he likes it there. They've built the team around him. He's a loyal guy. He grinds and grinds and grinds. I mean, he's the guys he's had to play with the last couple of years. You would understand if he had gotten frustrated. I mean, the team just isn't ready, and he is ready. He's in his prime. Look, I don't want to speculate what he is or isn't going to do. I just know that in these situations, it seems almost every time, no matter what is in the guy's heart and soul and what his intentions are, there just comes a point where everybody looks at each other and says, it's time. And again, I've already said this before. Like, if you want me to bet, like I bet that maybe it's not this season because it's such a mess with the virus and relocating your family, and he's got 2 small kids. Maybe it's not this season, but if the Wizards are bad this year or next year, I just find it hard to believe that a time doesn't come where Bradley Beal says, you know what? And the Wizards would probably say, yeah, you're right. We've all tried. Let's do right by you.
When you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, they had an overhaul on their roster. They got younger. And do you think this ensemble of Lakers has the ability to repeat as champions, or do you see them making some kind of move on a buyout, somebody being bought out, or possibly strengthen their roster before they get to the playoffs?
I do think this group can win the whole thing. I think they're better than they were last year and more versatile. That said, we always see there's always buyout guys that go to the 2 or 3 best teams in the league. So they'll probably get someone, but it has been interesting the last couple of games. They've shrunk their rotation a little bit. Frank Vogel has given both Markieff Morris and Wes Matthews 2 straight DNP CDs behind Caruso and behind Taylor Horton Tucker, whose name I still can't say. So that says like they're pretty comfortable with their depth if they're just straight up not playing those guys. But you know how this works. Someone will find their way to chase a ring with the Lakers.
Hey, Zach, take us behind the scenes a little bit of the great feature that you do every week, 10 things I like and I don't like, because someone who's been in the profession for a long time, I can't even imagine the man hours that go into that, 1. And 2, how much help do you get with all the video clips? Because the detail and the explanations are so fantastic. Let people inside what's going on the court. How much time do you spend on a weekly basis trying to get that thing together?
Well, first of all, thank you. Second of all, it's so boring that the question will not be interesting, but I just watch a lot of basketball. Like there's no secret. It's amazing. I always tell people it's amazing how far you can get now just by watching basketball. Like when I watch basketball, I don't tweet. I don't have like a third screen going on over here. I'm not on the phone with people. I'll text like some people in the league if I'm watching their team play and hey, that play was cool or this and that. But if you just in fact, that Celtics Bulls series from whatever years ago, the Celtics, if I recall, in like game 4 or something, played some crazy zone defense where they hid Isaiah Thomas all the way in the corner. And every time the Bulls tried to screen to get Isaiah Thomas into the play, they would switch him up. It was like a crazy zone. And nobody wrote about it for 2 days. And I wrote about it. And someone with the Celtics called me and said, I can't believe nobody wrote about this for 2 days. And I'm like, it's because they're just like just watching the game. It's like the lowest hanging fruit you can get. So I just watch a lot of basketball. And as far as the clips go, I have a whole file. It's like 20 pages long of plays and clips. And I send it to magicians at ESPN. And I just said, give me a video of this. And they make those clips for me. But writing it is not that hard. It's just, you just got to watch a lot of basketball. But basketball is fun. It's fun watching basketball. I do think like, if you ever see me at a game, I don't have my laptop open. I have my laptop open to take notes, but I don't tweet. Jackie McMullen says I'm her favorite person to sit next to at a game because I'm the only one that doesn't want to talk to her. I'm like completely antisocial during the game.
Hey, while we're taping this, your buddy Woj dropped a Woj bomb saying that they're getting moving closer to an all-star game, a one-night event where they're going to play a game and the skills competition in the same night. People have debated whether or not with the pandemic that this is something that the league should really be pointing towards, but clearly it's important to both sides, and it'll be a big moneymaker, and they're going to try to get a charitable aspect in there as well.
Yeah, the both sides thing is important. I think in a lot of the discourse about the virus and how the league is proceeded, and look, these are really hard decisions. Nothing is risk-free. Us leaving our house is not
Right.
risk-free. you don't want to load up too much risk into your life and all that. But these decisions are not just like foisted on the players. It's often people react as if the league is forcing players to do this and putting players in unsafe positions against their will. And yeah, if I were a player, I might think twice about some of these decisions, but my union is heavily involved in all these negotiations. None of this is happening without the players saying, okay, we think it's okay for it to happen. And if a player doesn't want to go, this is all-star. Like if you're selected to the all-star game, you don't have to go. I mean, I don't even like, you could just say no, and you still are an all-star and it counts and all that. So like you said, it's going to be a moneymaker. You said it. That's it. It's going to be a moneymaker. That's why there's no other reason why this would I mean, yes, you want to entertain the fans. Everybody loves the dunk contest, whatever, but it's a moneymaker.
When you see LeBron James' career getting ready to come to an end, probably, I'd say he's got about 3 or 4 good years left at a high level. When he's done, where do you compare him? Because there's going to be the debate, Michael or LeBron. And when he's finished, where do you see the comparisons, and who would you think would be the greatest player?
After the finals, this past finals, I finally wrote a LeBron Michael piece. I've been resisting it my entire life, right? Wading into this hellfire of a debate. I think when it's all said and done, if LeBron wins another championship, so he gets to 5, I just think in 10 or 15 years, when we've had time and space, we're going to put the resumes up side by side, and LeBron's case is going to be more overwhelming than we think, except there's one thing he can never beat, and that's 6-0. Yeah. And if all you care about is 6-0, then the whole debate is meaningless to you. There's no way LeBron can ever, he'd have to win 8 rings to win it, right? And Michael doesn't have a series like what happened to LeBron in 2011 against the Mavericks when he had a meltdown and was a shell of himself. Like that Michael didn't have that on the big stage. But LeBron's going to be maybe the all-time leading scorer in the NBA and one of the greatest passers of all. Statistically, his case is going to be overwhelming. And if he wins another title, so it's 5-6, and he's made a gazillion finals, I think if you're able to look at it rationally, the cold, calculated, analytical case is going to be pretty easily and heavily LeBron. But if 6-0, and look, I grew up in the Michael era. I remember watching those games. I remember watching some of your games. I remember the Stacey King game in Portland. Okay. Like that series 2-2, series was a 2-2 series. The 91 finals. As a fan, as a teenager, whatever, you just never thought Michael could lose. It was impossible. I don't care if it was game 7 against the Knicks, game 6 against Utah, a 2-2 series, whatever. He was indomitable. He was invincible. Even if you were cheering against him, you were cheering for him, whatever. You never, ever thought the Bulls were going to lose once they won the first one. And LeBron has never quite inspired that level of invincibility. But statistically, the case is going to be overwhelming.
Yeah, and Space Jam 2 is coming out soon. I don't. That was one thing that I don't think needed to be repeated. It was fine the first time, but do we really need a Space Jam 2, Zach?
I think we do. I'm on the. It's one of my controversial hot takes. I think Space Jam is overrated, and I think Space Jam 2 is a chance to correct some of the. I'm still disappointed. They had an NBA commissioner character in Space Jam, and it's not David Stern. It's an actor portraying David Stern. So I've said before, if the commissioner is in Space Jam 2 and Adam Silver doesn't take a day out of his life to portray himself in Space Jam 2, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, but Foghorn Leghorn can't go left. So that's a problem.
Lola Bunny is the only one on that team that can play at all. The rest of them are, I don't know how they won. The rest of them are scrubs.
Well, Bill Murray was underrated.
Bill Murray can play. Bill Murray made the whole movie, frankly.
Hey, Zach, circling back around to where we started. I know Bulls fans are kind of on the fence. They're trying to decide, should we jump in on this team? Where are we at? What's your level of confidence in what the Reinsdorfs have done in bringing in Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley, and then in turn bringing in Billy Donovan and his staff? Do you see a path to them being relevant in the East again relatively soon?
I hope so. Yeah, I do. I think Arturas and his staff are really good. Billy Donovan's a good coach. It's just, and even if there's not the straw that stirs the drink on the roster, or they just sort of keep all of these young guys, just by experience and inertia, those kind of teams get good. Now, maybe they don't ever get great, but even if you just keep this nucleus together, make no changes, this team will get better and get fun. And maybe they don't become a top 3 seed in the East or whatever, but they'll be playing in 2 years and whatever it is. At some point, they will be playing fun second round playoff games at the United Center. They have bigger dreams than that, and they should have bigger dreams than that. But yeah, I think this front office is going to make more right decisions than wrong ones for sure.
When you look at the Denver Nuggets, the team that I feel is the team that's going to surprise a lot of people again this year, do you think they legitimately have a chance with Jokic getting past? I don't think they're going to beat the Lakers, but to be in that position where they can play the Lakers in the finals again, and do they have enough to challenge the Lakers?
Yeah, I think the Nuggets, I had them in my inner circle of contenders behind the Lakers. I had the Lakers as favorites to repeat entering the season, and the Nuggets in the next tier with Milwaukee and the Clippers. To which is just kind of saying like the Nuggets are a hot streak or a sprained ankle away from being in the finals. I'm super high on the Nuggets. When they were 7-7 and scuffling, I kept telling people, I'm not worried about the Nuggets. I'm not worried about the Nuggets. And Jamal Murray's got to get healthy. You can see him every game. He's playing with his elbow and his shoulder. He's not healthy, but the big fella is so damn good. And Michael Porter Jr. is just figuring out how good he's going to be offensively. Defensively, they need to get a little better, and that's going to be a challenge for them. But I think they're legit. And like we saw in the bubble, if you want to win at the highest level, you really need to have 2 guys who can create their own shots at an elite or at least above average level. And in Murray and Jokic, they've got that. And Jokic might be the MVP right now. If you stop the voting today, he might be the MVP.
Wow.
Since Stacey brought up the Western Conference, do you think we'll get the all Staples Center Western Conference final, or is there just too much going on inside that Clippers organization that they may not get to the finals again, the Western Conference finals this year?
No, they're the odds-on favorite to play the Lakers. I think they have more two-way potential than the Nuggets, right? They have fewer questions to answer on defense for sure, and their offense is number 2 in the league. So everything I've heard coming out of the Clippers is pretty, like, everything's copacetic this season, you know. And Ty Lue has made some adjustments, and some guys have different roles than they had last year. But Paul George is playing great. He's doing everything he promised he would do before the season when he said he's gonna show people that he's still Paul George. So I think it's totally plausible, and it would be really, really fun to have that LA series. If maybe we could have it with fans at some point, that would be amazing.
Would you think that the Miami Heat, who is a surprise bubble team who went through everybody in the bubble, and they've struggled a little bit with injuries, Jimmy's been in and out of the lineup, they had a chance to make that move to get Harden. That was some of the one of the things they said they
Bradley Beal.
They had a chance to get Harden, and I think they would have had to give up both their shooters, Hero and Duncan. Would you have made that move if you had a chance to get Harden and you had to give up, one of your young shooters and maybe some picks to get Harden? Would you have made that Miami?
When you look at what Houston actually got, I don't think Miami had a chance. I mean, like, I don't think, because they owe picks already, so they're limited in the number of picks they can trade. And you look at, I mean, they didn't get LeVert, but they turned LeVert into Victor Oladipo, and they could have had Jared Allen. I mean, you look at all the picks and all the swaps they got. I'm not sure Miami can get into that ballpark. But yeah, I mean, I remember reading these reports that, Tyler Hero's been taken off the table and James Harden trades. Like, that's not a thing. Like, I'm not sure Tyler Hero is on the table, but I know damn well sure Pat Riley is like, no, we're not even going to take a call on Tyler Hero. Like, this is the Heat. They chase superstar players. That's what they do. And man, you put Harden with Jimmy and Bam, 2 guys who defend like that, that's pretty interesting, who can cover for his weaknesses. So, they're in a deep hole right now. I'm not sure they have the juice to get Bradley Beal, so they're probably going to have to dig out of it with what they got.
Zach, you've been so generous with your time. We appreciate you catching us up on what's going on here in home with the Bulls and around the NBA. Keep up the great work. We love the podcast. As I mentioned, the 10 things I like and don't like is just fantastic. It's must see every week. And we appreciate you joining us here on Gimme the Hot Sauce. Won't be long. Stacey King is the biggest draw in Chicago. Maybe will that ever change at some point in the future?
Man.
No, it will not. It will not. I thank you guys for having me. It's fun. And can I give one guy some love before I get off?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
How about my guy Thaddeus Young?
Oh, he's
Triple double threat every game, spraying passes all over the place. I love Thad Young.
Stacey,
I caught him Magic Johnson yesterday.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I'm gonna tell you something about him. Last year, you know, he came here with the premise of he was going to be a starter or have a prominent role under Jim Boylan, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. He was a great pro, consummate pro, didn't pout, didn't cause problems, didn't force a trade. He just handled his business, you know, was an example to these younger players. And now Billy Donovan, who recognizes what he can do, because everybody knows Thad's game. You know, he's got that great post-up game. He takes advantage of matchups. He's not a three-point shooter, but he can shoot it and keep you honest. But it's so great these last few games to see him do the things that he's doing and letting people know that he's still a good basketball player. He's just not a guy you just fill in and saying, oh, he's a role player. He's a very good basketball player.
Been a lot of fun with him and Lowry together at the 4 and the 5. A lot of space. He's rolling, spraying passes. They're fun to watch when they play that way.
Yeah, they are. He was like plus 18 or something last night with him being on the floor. So he's a positive impact when he comes in the game. I'm glad to see him get off. And we had him on the interview yesterday, and we interviewed him after the game, and nobody had a beep button. He was just cursing. I'm like, okay, is anybody going to beep into this out? He was just going. It was unfiltered, but it was raw and it was funny, and we had a good time with him.
That was great. That's great. Well, I'm glad he's getting some love.
I'll tell him you said what's up.
Yeah, the shackles have been taken off. Jim Boylan's shackles are gone. Now he can be free.
Yeah, he's free.
Billy Donovan off.
Free at last.
Zach, thank you so much for joining us. People follow him on all the various ESPN platforms. The great Zach Lowe on the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast. Coming up next, we go off the wall with Stacey King. Zach, that was great.
Thanks,
thank you so much for all the time.
Appreciate it, my man.
Thanks, guys. That's a lot of fun. I'll catch you on the next broadcast, Stacey. But thank you, guys. Anytime you want to talk, let me know.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
If you can retweet us when you get a chance, that'd be fantastic. We'd love to
We'll do.
all your followers to check us out.
We'll do. Stay safe, guys.
Thanks, Zach.